Welcome to the Created Worthy podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Damrell, and I am so grateful that you're here. On this show, I talk about creative processing and how to utilize it as a skill to bring peace, joy, and freedom into our chaotic lives. I also sit down with the most incredible guests as they share their stories, many of which for the very first time. We are all created worthy. Hello, I'm your host, Danielle Damrell, and I felt like God put a message on my heart to share with someone today, so it's just me. Okay, I am here to talk about the importance of processing pain. Yes, in some creative ways, but mostly just about what it means to process it in general. Pain is something we all experience throughout different seasons of life, and it takes shape in all different kinds of ways. From a broken bone to a broken heart, we've all experienced pain. Pain is pain, though. Today, I will be focusing on processing emotional pain. This is the kind of pain that no surgery, medicine, or Band-Aid can truly make the suffering any easier to walk through. It's the kind of pain that maybe feels like a clingy ex-boyfriend who, no matter how many times you ask, will not leave you alone. It's the kind of pain that feels like it's running through your blood at times, as if it's actually within you. In our culture, it's normalized to just keep moving forward, which you should do in some ways, but not through things like overscheduling, hustling, or just staying busy. Many times, in order to actually move forward, you have to process the present. You have to feel the pain and lean into suffering. From a physiological perspective, our bodies are not created as tireless machines or vessels. Our bodies need rest, and it takes time and effort to process the pain that we feel when hard times or chaos starts to arrive. Now, let's talk for a minute about what happens if we don't process pain. First of all, the pain doesn't go away. It just stays there and becomes deeply intertwined into who we are and how we're living, which leads to the second reason. Pain can turn into resentment and bitterness, and sometimes it's not even towards a certain person. We can build up resentment with life itself. My guess is that I'm not the only person who's walked through seasons of resentment towards myself and my life. Seasons where waking up in the morning feels more like a punishment than it does a blessing. This is often the result of unprocessed pain, and it's a signal that there's some deep heart work that still needs to be done. I want to encourage you that if you're experiencing this, seek professional help. I'm not just saying that, really. I still see my therapist every week and cannot stress enough how important it is to have a mental health professional when you walk through these deep, dark, difficult times. I personally think that we could all benefit from therapy during every season, but especially when you're walking through these heavy and dark seasons. The third thing that happens when we don't process pain is that it always catches up with you. Unprocessed pain always catches up with you. You may be able to numb it and escape it for a while, but I promise you it's holding you back from experiencing true joy. Pain demands to be felt so that the wounds can heal properly. Let me just give you a physical example of this. So let me take you back to last year when I got into a freak electric scooter accident. It was another chaotic, crazy season in life. I had just launched this podcast. I was on a family vacation in Idaho, and in Boise, like most cities nowadays, they have electric scooters that you can rent and go explore on. Well, I was riding one. I hit a small bump, and the scooter literally broke in half. If you want to see pictures of it on my personal Instagram, you can go there and see that. This fall, freak accident, whatever you want to call it, resulted in a pretty severe road rash on my leg. I went home and I cleaned it and I bandaged it and I tried my best to keep it clean. I had nasal surgery the next week and was just trying to treat it as best I could from home. I even got advice from some friends who had gone through a terrible car accident and had road rash all over her body. But after a month, the rash was not really healing. It hurt so bad. The pain kept increasing until I finally decided to go to the doctor. When I arrived at the doctor, she explained that there were signs of infection and that I needed to be applying a really strong antibiotic multiple times a day, as well as keep it covered until the first layer of skin grew back. The doctor explained that if I had waited any longer, the infection could have spread and caused major problems like potentially losing a limb or getting sepsis again, which from previous experience is the worst physical pain in the world. And I had a 10-pound baby. This is just a physical example. Yes, I know. But every part of this really does apply to the emotional pain we feel as well. The lesson in this is to not ignore your pain. Look, we all want to be strong, but guess what? We already are strong. Acting strong is different than being strong. Real strength comes when you're able to lean into the uncomfortableness of healing. Now that we've talked about what happens when we don't process pain, let's dive into what happens when we do. If we process pain, we develop resilience. Resilience leads to freedom, and freedom leads to joy. Secondly, we create space in our hearts and our lives to be more fully present. Third, and this is a big one, we can halt the natural cycle of comparison that always seems to partner with those painful seasons especially. It's so easy to look at other people's lives when we're struggling and just think to ourselves, if only I could have what they have, or I just want to switch places with them because they have such a beautiful, easy, fun, fill in the blank life. Social media makes this so easy to do too, and there's no shame here in admitting that this happens. Probably all the time. It does for me. Remember this though, these kinds of thoughts are likely rooted in the fact that we don't see our own lives as sufficient. And somehow we've put other humans on a pedestal in our hearts and minds. The only one who is worthy of being idolized is the Lord. As the author Edward T. Welsh has taught so many of us, you've probably heard this before, when people are big, God is small. And this leads to the fourth reason why we should process pain. We are able to humble ourselves and offer authentic empathy. When we relate to someone out of a place of longing, we aren't truly holding space for them. When we process through our pain in lasting and meaningful ways, we are able to compartmentalize and relate from a place of hope and healing. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the best at this, and I'm learning through every conversation and connection I have with someone how important it is. This is a focus point in my own therapy sessions right now, and it's a process of unlearning communication traits that have developed through years and years of childhood trauma, relational trauma, and just simply being inclined to overshare all the time. I'm face palming hard right now. So, how do we even begin to process pain? Well, just like with everything else, it's different for every person. But I will give you a few tools that I have in my toolbox that have helped me in various pain-filled seasons. Look, I am no philosopher, but I have been through some shiz. So first of all, of course, creative processing always helps. Really, it does. To remind you, the definition of creative processing is a tool that activates one's creative mind in an intentional way. You could use the prompt of the purpose of blank is to process blank, and the intention is really the key here. For example, you could say the purpose of writing is to process the loss of my grandpa. Then you'd set a time for how long you're going to write for, but remember to have flexibility with yourself. And if you go a little longer, that's okay. But set a time and go for at least that amount. Also, if you can, set the scene. If you're a mama living in a loud house, I feel you, and I highly recommend getting noise-canceling headphones. Another thing I've tried recently in my fight to conquer this pain-filled, anxiety-ridden funk I've been in for over a month now is face ice baths. I know it sounds a little weird. It is a little weird, but I think it works. I have been sharing my personal experience with this on Instagram and TikTok. It's in a highlight on my Instagram. It's pretty much the only recent thing on my TikTok. And I've even convinced a few friends and my husband to try it. So check that out if you want to. And if you want to know more, I have a research-based article available in the show notes. Spoiler alert, I do think it's helpful for me, but it's not for everyone. The third thing is to find a mental health professional. How do you do that? Google therapists near me that treat whatever your pain point is. This pain point could be loss, childhood trauma, divorce, infidelity, parenting, infertility, you name it. And I promise you, you can find someone with that specialty. I will warn you, though, that finding a therapist can be like buying a new car. The first one you see may not be the right one for you, but have faith and keep searching. I know it can get hard, but like I said, there is somebody out there for everyone. A good therapist will tell you in the first sessions if they think you're a good fit for each other. You can also ask them that. And most of all, listen to your gut and lean into your discernment and intuition. If something feels off about your sessions, it very well might be. And it's okay to be honest with them about that. I think the fourth and most basic step, and maybe one of the best first steps you can take when beginning to process pain, is just to allow yourself to feel it. It's important to remember that pain always has a purpose. Cry or scream into a pillow if that's what comes up. Give yourself permission to just be present with you. Maybe you need to be present with the younger version of you who might be confused as to why no one protected you or met your needs in the way that you desperately needed. Or maybe you need to be present with the current version of you who might be questioning how things went wrong or why so many painful things keep happening. Whatever the case, instead of leaning away from pain and suffering, try to lean into it. And you might be surprised how much peace and release you find in that simple decision to slow down and just feel for a moment. None of these are cure-alls. The only one who is capable of miraculously curing all things is God. But most of the time, He doesn't do that. He is, however, always present and faithful to meet us where we're at, to point us in the right direction, and lead us to the next right step for our own personal journeys. This is honestly the most important part of all of this, to be 100% honest with you. If you hear nothing else from this episode, hear this. God is a healer. He is the one who can lift our heads and will always provide. But I think we sometimes forget that we can ask. I know how hard it can be to remember this during pain-filled seasons. And yes, God knows us and He knows our hearts. But He also wants to connect with each of us. He wants to provide in clear and direct ways. And by turning to Him, we get the opportunity to glorify Him and point others towards the provider. He wants to perform miracles, but if we're avoiding Him, we're preventing that from happening. Oh my goodness. As I'm saying this, I am extremely convicted because I think that this is the most important missing link in my own life. I do try to connect with him in small ways that honestly feel comfortable and safe, but freedom is often on the other side of fear. And I know that there is so much more time and space in my life right now that I choose not to spend with him, but I need to. I know that this message was on my heart for a reason, and I hope that this serves as an encouragement and a reminder to all who hear this that you're not alone. We are all humans having different human experiences, and pain is part of the human experience. We're all in it together. So lean in and know that you are me and I am you, and we are all created worthy. Thank you so much for listening to the Created Worthy podcast. If you want to connect more, you can follow along with me over at Danielle Damrell or Damrell Creative Co. on Instagram and Facebook. All the links to today's topics are in the show notes, and you can also find a link to my Patreon, which is where you can help support my mission on this show and keep it going. Ratings and reviews really do matter, so make sure to hook me up with 5-star review. Any less, I would rather hear your opinions over email. So anyway, if this episode resonated with you at all, share the love, send it to a friend, or post it on your social media. But don't forget to tag me so I see it and can share it too. I hope all of you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you on the flip side.